A city sets ablaze as a child amongst the flames blankly gazes out before collapsing. The child, Shirou Emiya, now a teen and a novice mage, has grown up to be a kind person, helping everyone under the roof. Dreaming of being a hero of justice, Shirou goes through his morning routine together with Sakura, his junior, who comes in to make breakfast, and Fujini, sensei at their school, but also the landlord's daughter, who often crashes to eat. The TV blares the recurring gas leaks throughout the city, causing casualties. At school, Shirou helps around the school with his friend Issei and has a brief encounter with another student, Rin. Returning to class, they also get into a slight quarrel with Sakura's troublesome brother Shinji. That night, as he returns from school, a strange little girl passes by him. "You should summon yours or you'll die," she mutters, before vanishing behind Shirou, leaving him a bit ajar. Meanwhile, the reports of accidents around the city keep rising. Shirou reminisces of the time when hundreds had died in the fire with him, the sole survivor, saved and adopted by an all-powerful mage, Giritsugu. Coming back from his work, he feels like he saw Rin. The next evening, while cleaning the dojo at school, Shirou witnesses two men in a lethal clash. One of them, Lancer, spots him and chases, stabbing him to death. However, Shirou, having visions of Rin, wakes up injured but alive and finds a red stone necklace lying around him. He reaches home, only to be attacked again by Lancer. However, as he stumbles into the storage room trying to escape, a woman appears, armored and wielding an invisible sword, defending Shirou. Turning to Shirou, she asks, "Are you my master?" before springing off to combat Lancer and send him retreating. While Shirou tries to make sense of the events, the woman introduces herself as Saber, senses another opponent around and then rushes off. Following her, Shirou finds her combating the second guy, Archer. However, Shirou yells, commanding her to cease, making her involuntarily freeze. Surprised, he witnesses none other than Rin standing beside Archer. Rin sips tea at Shirou's together with him and Saber. Coming to learn that Shirou's a novice with almost no hold on even fundamental magic, she explains the situation to him. Shirou has been chosen as one of the 7 masters to fight in the Holy Grail War. Each provided a servant for assistance. Hence, Saber, a strong class servant, is his. She points to the marks on his hand, the 3 command spells that bind the servant's obedience to them. However, Shirou used one when he yelled for Saber to stop him. To help him understand the situation a little better, Rin decides to take him to the overseer of the war, Girei. Rin and Shirou meet Girei at the church. Girei defines war as the fight to the death between the masters to achieve the Holy Grail that shall grant any wish. However, Shirou refuses to spill blood. Girei gives him the chance to use his command spells and drop out or fight and win to prevent the Grail from falling into the hands of a possible evil master, shedding more blood. He reminds Shirou of the fire, making him realize that it was an outcome of an evil winner. Leaving the church, Shirou decides to fight and shakes it with Saber. With everything explained, Rin announces herself as Shirou's enemy but spares him for now, indebted for stopping Saber earlier. Their chat is, however, broken as the little girl appears before them with her colossal servant, Berserker. Rin and Shirou stare in awe at the massive Berserker as Ilya, the little girl, cues him to attack. He pounds towards them, neutralizing Archer's attack and landing behind Shirou. Just as he's about to end him, Saber zaps and counters him, sending him flying. Rin tells Shirou to run away, going after them. However, Shirou's selflessness doesn't allow him to, and he follows to help Saber. Rin encounters Ilya in the woods, distressed to discover that the little girl is far more powerful than she actually looks. She almost kills Rin. However, Archer interrupts the attack, giving her a chance to escape. Running away, Rin bumps into the disobedient Shirou and grows annoyed as they start quarreling right there. Saber has led Berserker to the cemetery, and with enough places to provide cover, she finally lands blows on him. She charges, breaking through his shield and pierces right through him. Archer realizes Berserker's regeneration ability and prepares to finish him off. Just as he shoots, Shirou appears, grabbing Saber away and saving her as Berserker goes up in a blast. But the ghastly animal once again survives. Archer's ability leaves Ilya impressed, and she pulls back with Berserker as Shirou collapses, spitting blood from the impact of the blast. Shirou wakes from a weird dream, bandaged, and gets spooked to see Rin. As she leaves, he thanks her for helping, making her a bit blushed. Shirou heads inside to find Saber resting and reserving mana, since as a novice master, he's unable to provide her enough. Saber, however, touched, asks Shirou to refrain from saving her, revealing that she wishes to win the Grail as well. She explains the classes of servants: Saber, Lancer, Archer, Rider, Caster, Assassin and Berserker, each with a noble phantasm, their best combat technique. Just then, Shirou gets a call from Fujini asking for bento at the dojo. Shirou and Saber arrive at the dojo. As he chats with Sakura and Mitsuzuri, Saber wanders into the school and finds Gozuki-sensei. The two engage in a brief stern stare-down before Shirou arrives, apologizing. Mitsuzuri asks Shirou to consider the dojo again before he leaves with Sakura and Fujini. On their way, he informs them of Saber's stay at the house. Rin investigates inside a building and is attacked by animal skeleton familiars. Finishing them off, she finds the people inside passed out from gas. Rin and Archer soon realize that these aren't accidents, but the work of another servant, draining mana from people to strengthen herself, Caster. The next day, Shirou heads to school, leaving Saber at home. He's disturbed when he learns that Mitsuzuri went missing from the dojo yesterday. The last person seen with her was Shinji. As the school announcements ring through the grounds, asking students to be safe, Shirou comes across Rin. She's finally resolved to make her attack. Rin zaps towards him, attacking as he desperately runs to save himself. They chase each other through the school like chickens before Shirou gains confidence and turns ready to fight head-on. But before they can clash, a scream interrupts them. Outside, they find a teacher collapsed and drained of mana. Suddenly, Shirou senses an oncoming attack. A bait shoots towards Rin, but Shirou blocks it, injuring his arm and saving her. He returns to the woods and finds himself facing another servant, Rider. Pulling at the bait, Rider hangs him from a tree, ready to kill. However, Rin arrives in time, saving him as Rider disappears. Tired of not being able to keep a serious fight between them, Rin takes Shirou back to her place. There she tells him that the queer occurrences and the teacher collapsing aren't accidents, but a sought-out plan. There's even a field around the school. The two then decide to form a temporary alliance. Rin's curious as to why Shirou hasn't inherited the magic crest from his father and is offended to learn that Giritsugu believed in keeping the magic secret. She reasons that magic should be passed down by mages, that it's a duty, hence calling Shirou's father a no-mage since he put fatherhood before duty. On his way home, Shirou turns around, asking Archer to not follow. Archer, materializing from thin air, praises his ability to sense hostility, reasoning that he's commanded by Rin. Shirou learns that, unlike Saber, he has no wish to achieve the Grail. He arrives home to find Fujini and Sakura happily delivering the good news of Mitsuzuri being found. At school, Shinji suspiciously taunts him about Mitsuzuri, making him enraged. However, they stop just as they're about to fight. During the break, Shirou and Rin, now in a truce, go around the school disabling the field together. Rin heads out early that day, telling Shirou to stay safe. On his way out, Shirou is met with Shinji, who reveals himself as one of the masters and the field his plan. He offers him to join hands, however Shirou refuses. Shinji informs that Sakura has no idea, hence to speak to her about it. That night, as Shirou sleeps, invisible strings swing into his home, wrapping around him, and in a matter of seconds, Shirou finds himself summoned to a temple in front of the caster. Finding him gone, Saber soon follows, only to be blocked by the assassin guarding the temple. Inside, Shirou is immobile. Caster moves in to steal his command spells and drains him of life. In a flash, Archer appears, slashing down the strings and standing before Caster, defending Shirou. Saber finds Assassin as a lethal opponent and is unable to pass through him. Meanwhile, Archer stands before Caster. She reveals that the Assassin has no master. He's just a pawn of hers that she's managed to summon herself. Archer charges at her, killing her. However, she materializes above them and through the immense mana that she's gathered from killing people, launches powerful blows at him. She aims for Shirou, but Archer swoops in time, carrying him by the back of his shirt, enraging the poor hanging Shirou, who wails, protesting like a helpless baby. It's not long before Archer takes the upper hand and blows her away with his noble phantasms. To Shirou's surprise, Archer lets her go. Before leaving, she comments on the similarity between the two of them. Archer reasons that he'll wait for Caster to prey on the people and gain enough mana to crush Berserker. Coldly, he justifies that without sacrifices, you can't save anyone, making Shirou so enraged that he jumps to punch him. With the truce violated, Archer swings his blade, slashing Shirou's whole back. Drenched in blood, he desperately tries to crawl back but is slashed, once again causing him to fall outside where Saber catches him. The assassin, seeing the situation, soon realizes that Kasta had fled and allows them to leave. However, Archer comes in to finish Shirou off. In a swift, assassin counters his attack, feeling offended by his intrusion. As the two engage in a clash, Saber retreats, carrying an injured Shirou home. Shirou wakes up from a weird dream once again. Seeing Archer fight earlier, he's stuck on him and imitates Archer's combat form, finding himself combating better through his techniques. At school, students huddle around watching Rin impatiently wait outside their classroom. As Shirou appears, she points towards him, baffling the audience and dragging him along. On the roof, Rin apologizes for Archer's attack, seeming worried for him. She assures him that she has used a command spell to prevent him until the truce ends. While they talk, Shinji's up to mischief. Suddenly, a sinister shield erupts over the school. Shirou and Rin hurry downstairs to find the students have collapsed. As they take in the scene, skeletal familiars once again appear before them. At that moment, Shirou decides to use his command spell and summon Saber. She appears in all grace, slashing away. As she provides them cover, they rush to investigate, only to find a quivering Shinji and his servant Ryder dead with a twisted head. Meanwhile, Saber encounters Kasta in Ryder's form, tauntingly caressing her cheek before disappearing. With the shield gone, Rin interrogates Shinji, who refuses to give in and runs away. While Shirou looks after the students' limp bodies, Rin compliments how level-headed he is to deal with so many bodies, to which Shirou calmly replies, "I'm used to dead bodies." Archer finally arrives after the party's ended and is baffled upon learning that a servant has fallen. The group fills him in on the event and decides to retire for the day, deciding to locate Kasta's master as their foremost priority. At night, Girei is paid a visit by a maniac Shinji, begging to withdraw. However, he offers him an available servant, providing an opportunity for him to continue. In the morning, as Shirou arrives at school, Rin grabs him, trying to convince him that Issei might be Kasta's master since he's from the temple. Giving the students a continued episode of their drama to watch, Rin finally pulls him aside and he promises to find out about Issei. He keeps his promise by stripping poor Issei off to find command spells. On his way home, Shirou changes his course towards Sakura's house to check if she's well after the incident, but finds Rin peeping. Seeing him, she pulls him aside roughly, making him go red. The woman is too brazen to pull a guy like that and destroy his dignity. She shows him the strange blonde man standing outside Sakura's house. Once he's left, Shirou tells her that Issei's in the clear. Strangely, she asks him how he'd feel if someone was given away to be adopted without a say. Back at home, Fujini blabbers, telling Saber of Shirou's childhood and dream to be a hero of justice. Upon Saber asking why, he wishes that Shirou ends the conversation. Sitting alone, he wonders why he can't speak the true reason behind his wish to complete Giritsugu's dream of becoming a hero. Rin lays in bed, finally aware of Archer's past. At school, Rin and Shirou learn through Issei about Kuzuki-sensei. He's been living at the temple with him and recently welcomed his fiancée as well. Suddenly, everything becomes clear. He's Kasta's master and the fiancée is Kasta herself. Having found their target, Saber, Rin and Shirou wait in hiding for Kuzuki to return home. Surprisingly, Archer's not present on Rin's orders. Soon, they see the silhouette of Kuzuki appear and Rin shoots at him. Her attack is immediately blocked by Kasta materializing before them. Now aware of their presence, Shirou steps out, informing Kuzuki of what his servant has been committing behind his back. However, he remains unwavering and allows Kasta to do as she pleases. Hearing this, Rin spins out from her cover, attacking Kasta and igniting the clash. Showing herself, Saber zooms towards Kuzuki, unaware that he's a lethal mage to attack. Kuzuki delivers a serious blow, sending Saber crashing and collapsing, and goes to Rin next, rendering her unconscious. Seeing her down, Shirou's triggered and extremely furious. His body courses with mana, and despite being a novice, he formulates blades like those of archers, countering Kuzuki's attack. Seeing this, Kuzuki and Kasta retreat as Saber rushes to Shirou. Somewhere in a dreadful building, Shinji converses with the blonde man, his new servant. He stupidly rambles about plotting to kill other masters, however, his servant has other plans. The next day, Shirou wakes up with a heavy arm and throughout the day finds it quivering and compromised. After school, he avoids meeting up with Rin and heads straight home, only for her to appear at his door. Just as he hoped to avoid the devil arrives. They spend the day discussing the plan to face Kasta and Rin, teasing Shirou. Soon, Fujini also arrives and attempts to scold Rin for being there so late, but finds herself submitting and allowing her to stay. Rin also notices Shirou struggling with his arm and helps him with the dishes. It's clear that she's grown caring for him. Later, Shirou finds Rin outside in the courtyard. She compliments the field around the house, saying that it's warm unlike hers. They strike a conversation as Rin expresses that it's fun to practice magic. However, Shirou can't relate and says that he doesn't find it fun but wants it to help others. Irritated, Rin jumps, scolding him as to why he doesn't find it fun and showering him with a series of questions, interrogating his feelings towards magic. His answers make her realize how similar he is to Archer. That night, Rin stays at his place. At night, as Saber and Shirou discuss his arm, Archer unexpectedly pays them a visit, offering to help. Fixing his heavy arm, he informs that Shirou has finally opened his circuits, which were recently dormant, and will emerge as a better magician. Before leaving, he reveals that he went through something similar. The next day, Shirou is flabbergasted when Rin announces a date. Poor guy grows both happy and distressed at the thought. Red and embarrassed, together with Saber, the two of them go around the city loosening up. As they sit down for a picnic, Shirou realizes that all of this is Rin's attempt to make him feel better and thanks her for staying, making her blush to her ear. On their way back, Saber senses something odd, and suddenly the bus has collapsed into a magical field. They crawled out to find Caster. To Shirou's horror, she holds an unconscious Fujini, threatening to harm her if Shirou doesn't give up his command spells. Being selfless, Shirou offers his arm, but Saber couldn't allow the sight of her beloved master to give up himself and attacks Caster. However, Caster whips out her noble phantasms and stabs Saber right in the chest, making both her and Shirou wince in pain as his command spells get transferred to her hand. She cackles in victory, claiming that Saber is now hers, since Shirou just lost his status as a master. With Saber in her shackles, she orders her to kill Rin, and Saber involuntarily charges. However, Shirou comes in between, getting stabbed through his shoulder and collapsing. Now at that moment, Archer arrives, destroying Caster's familiars and creating an exit. Watching Shirou gravely injured, Saber grows tearful and with a strong will manages to defy Caster just enough to allow her friends to escape. Caster appears at church in front of Kirei, showing him how she has defied rules and now Saber is hers. She demands a lesser grail from him and upon him rejecting, attacks him. From a distance, Lancer watches as Kirei battles Caster's familiars. Meanwhile, Shirou wakes up at Rin's and finds a familiar red stone necklace, realizing that it was Rin that saved his life the first time. He stumbles out in the city and finds her atop a building. However, Rin coldly replies that he's no longer a master or useful. Leaving Shirou behind, she flies out with Archer. Her last words to him are to stay away from war or die. Stumbling home, bleeding, Shirou thinks over his dream to be a champion of justice. The next day, after making himself a lonesome breakfast, he heads out with a wooden sword. At the church, Caster has killed Kirei and wreaks havoc trying to find the Grail. Punishing Saber for resisting her commands, she taunts her as Kuzuki joins them, staying for an unset objective. Rin and Archer decide to take out Caster. Arriving at the church, Rin decides that Archer shall face Kuzuki and her, Caster, saying that once she's defeated her, they can take Saber back and restore Shirou as master. Her words don't sit well with Archer. Nevertheless, they stand up before Caster and Kuzuki. As Rin engages with Caster, Kuzuki zaps to attack her. She calls out to Archer, who surprisingly throws her away instead, defending Kuzuki. Baffled, Rin watches as Archer willingly sides with Caster, reasoning that she's a superior master, and gives up his status as Rin's servant, making Rin lose her command seals. Just as Kuzuki attempts to finish her, a zealous Shirou reveals himself, defending Rin. His mana surges, allowing him to formulate the Archer blades again and protect her before crumpling. However, Archer demands to let them go for now. The two ex-masters sit back to back as Rin weeps. She asks Shirou why he returned for her and grows extremely blushed when a straightforward Shirou confesses his feelings for her. Resting her face against his back, she thanks him for the rescue. Someone finally broke through the stubborn heart of hers, I guess. Now servantless, Rin and Shirou once again join hands, deciding to find allies to take Caster down. Their target? The strongest servant there is, Ilya's Berserker. At the church, Caster wonders about the Lesser Grail's absence. She reminisces about Arthram, the first master who summoned her. Arthram was obnoxious, he degraded her, calling her a witch, and fearing she'd disobey him, used a command spell barricading her from using her noble phantasm on him. Despising him, Caster severed her servant master contract and burned him to death. As she lay dying, she was saved by Guzuki and has since served him ever since. Rin and Shirou arrive at the outskirts of Ilya's castle. Making their way in, Rin asks Shirou to step forward, only to be sparked by Ilya's security magic. Amused, the poor girl walks in herself to be sparked as well. You reap what you sow. Inside, Ilya notices the two, asking her servants to let them in. While going out to receive them, the two are interrupted by negative energy and find an idiotic Shinji yelling around. Seeing such a ridiculous master, they advance to kill when they're interrupted in true means. Gilgamesh, the blonde man, stands atop taunting. He states he shall kill them and the Lesser Grail shall come running out. Ilya, she's the vessel for the Lesser Grail. In a swift, he mercilessly ends both of their lives as Ilya comes out. Witnessing the death of her last two beloved servants, she unleashes Berserker onto him. Rin and Shirou arrive at the foot of the castle only to witness the booming of ongoing combat. Inside, Berserker finds it challenging to face Gilgamesh and his infinite treasury of arms. Having faith in Berserker, Ilya reminisces about her past. Born as a homunculus for the sole purpose of being a vessel for the Grail, she went through the pain of losing people and being abandoned by her father, Kiritsugu himself, until she found reason in the war, to live to fight Shirou. The boy Kiritsugu adopted after abandoning her. With only two servants left at her service in a humongous castle, she practiced her circuit and summoned Berserker. Having a muggy connection at first, Ilya soon learned Berserker's nature when he saved her from a pack of wolves and developed a bond with the colossal being. Determined to protect his master, Berserker faces the wrath of Gilgamesh and falls, once trapped in Gilgamesh's chain of heaven. With Berserker down, Gilgamesh slashes Ilya's eyes as she desperately searches for her beloved Berserker blindly. Shirou, who's now made it inside, is unable to bear an innocent being killed and desperately struggles to scream as Rin stifles his mouth, begging him to stay quiet. He breaks free, yelling, but is shot down by Gilgamesh in a second. Stabbing Ilya to death, Gilgamesh ends the most feared master-servant duo of the war. Gilgamesh rips out Ilya's heart, the Lesser Grail, as Shirou rises from the rubble, confronting him once again. Rin emerges as well, threatening to kill Shinji if Gilgamesh strikes Shirou. As Shinji orders him to kill the two, Gilgamesh refuses. His devilish self has identified Rin as a suitable vessel for the Grail. Realizing this, Shinji offers them to join hands and is met with a clear-cut refusal and hence leaves. Outside, Shirou and Rin pay their respects after burying Ilya. Scorning Shirou, Rin tearfully scolds him to not act so selflessly to save everyone. However, Shirou's determined. As they sit pondering over the situation, their old foe Lancer appears. The two immediately get on their toes and start arguing, asking each other to leave as they combat. Seriously, they really need to see when to bicker. Amused, Lancer climbs down, announcing that he poses no threat and offers to ally as ordered by his master. He compliments Rin, saying she's pretty, and if he'd have a female master, it would be her. With Rin consented, he turns to Shirou for his decision, who staunchly agrees with the demand for him to not make passes on Rin. The lover boy is possessive. With the trick up Rin's sleeve, the trio arrive at the church with Archer welcoming them at the entrance. Lancer steps forward to face him as Rin and Shirou make their way in. Shirou and Rin finally face the formidable duo as Shirou realizes the objective isn't to defeat, but to hold out the rugged foes until the plan's in action. Muttering "trace on," Shirou formulates the blades once again, ready for battle. Outside, Lancer and Archer are in a fierce match. Determined to finish Archer, Lancer, wielding his spear, unveils his noble phantasm, Gay Bolg, the spear that never misses its target. Defending himself with his best shield, Archer still fails to withhold, as Lancer's spear pierces through, rendering his arm useless. Realizing that Caster's eyes are now off him and occupied elsewhere, Archer reveals that it was all his plan, and Lancer withdraws, acknowledging his plot. Inside, Shirou is almost finished by Guzuki as Rin runs out of her magical gems against Caster. With no choice left and Shirou in a bad spot, she opts for martial arts and injures Caster gravely to distract Guzuki. Just as he's distracted, Archer appears, murmuring the same chant as Shirou, "Trace on," and formulating multiple swords slashing at Guzuki. However, Caster comes in between, bringing herself to an end. With his only objective, to return Caster to her land she yearned for, gone, Guzuki attacks Archer, but is killed as well. The troublesome pair is now finished. Shirou runs towards Saber, unaware as a pack of swords comes down on them just as Saber pulls him away. Rin yells at Archer, questioning why he's ongoing now that Caster's off. Declaring she's no longer his master and trapping her, he advances towards Saber and Shirou, revealing his true will is to kill Shirou. Freed, Saber stands defending Shirou. However, with no master, she can't perform remarkably. As she collapses, Shirou, formulating blades, goes for Archer and is almost killed. Reaching out to Saber, Rin calls out, asking her to pack the Servant Master Oath. Saber returns and, now back in form, easily overpowers Archer. However, Archer unveils his noble phantasm. Rising, he chants, "I'm the bone of my sword, unknown to death nor to life. Unlimited blade works," bringing them into his reality marble. To the desolate land where all the swords fought in his life are stored, his true noble phantasm. The same place which Shirou dreamed of too. Replicating Saber's sword, Archer attacks, but Shirou, exerting all he can, replicates the same, facing off the shower of blades and disrupting the marble. With no choice left, Archer kidnaps Rin as a hostage and decides to meet Shirou later to face off personally. Archer is Shirou himself from an alternate reality. He strived for his ultimate dream, to save everyone and leave none, to be a champion of justice. Once the miracle was achieved, one would think he would rest for his service, yet the man was cursed to be a guardian and exploited. Forever facing the trauma of killing and killing, his own ideals turned against him. Rin wakes up tired, questioning Archer if he feels anything for humanity when Shinji walks in with Gilgamesh to acquire Rin. Coldly, Archer allows them to have her once he's done with Shirou. As Saber and Shirou head out to face Archer, they're met with Lancer, willing to join hands once again. Together, the three set off for the clash. The three arrive as Archer waits for them in Iliad's castle. Shirou questions where Rin is and is told that she's left to Shinji. Hearing this, Lancer volunteers to look after her while Saber stays with Shirou. With Lancer gone, Archer continues explaining that there's no meaning to becoming a champion of justice. You're exploited and used, and in the end, must kill innocents to save thousands, sending many to despair. Wishing to be free from this tedious task of killing and killing, he throws a sword at Shirou, asking him to kill himself and save the world some slack. Rin, tied to the chair, is being harassed by Shinji. Just as he's about to cross the line, Lancer appears, smashing him in the face. Mr. My Pants All My Only When I'm Safe got what he deserved. About to set her free, they're interrupted by Kirei, appearing alive and well. He's disclosed to be Lancer's master. Coldly, he unveils that he'd killed Rin's father, and all this time tricked and raised her to be a proper vessel for the Grail. Making Rin curse in anger, he orders Lancer to end her. However, Lancer refuses, and without hesitation, through a command sealed, Kirei orders him to kill himself. Impaled by his own spear, Lancer collapses. Shirou picks up the sword and tosses it aside, declaring he's different from Archer, since he'd never regret if he's come to become the champion of justice, unlike Archer who regretted it wholly. Asking Saber to not interrupt, Shirou formulates the blades and zaps the clash with himself from the alternate world Archer. With Lancer dead, Kirei moves towards Rin to end her as Shinji protests that she's his. However, an injured Lancer stands back up, impaling Kirei and ending his life before collapsing tidily. Shinji, delighted to have Rin back, returns to his harassment but is sent running when Lancer pokes him with his spear. Scaredy cat. Freeing Rin, he crumples for good, complaining that he wishes she was his master before burning himself to death as Rin escapes. Outside, Archer and Shirou clash with each other. Although weak, Shirou soon starts absorbing Archer's tactics and ability through hits, becoming more stable in combat. Suddenly, he sees Archer's past in an illusion. Seeing the hell he's been through, the thousands of limp bodies, he falters, allowing Archer to overpower him. Chanting once again, Archer brings Shirou back to his reality marble, claiming that his ideals to be a champion are borrowed from his determination for Kiritsugu and not his own, which makes him and his dream useless. Determined, Shirou continues to fight, but is stabbed fatally by Archer and collapses. In his dying breath, he accepts Archer's frustration, but realizes there's something missing. 10 years ago, as a kid, he'd willingly walked in the fire to save people. Although he admired Kiritsugu, it was his own wish that materialized into an ideal through Kiritsugu. Avalon, the sword that Kiritsugu left as a connection to summon Saber, awakens in him. Standing up, healed, he calls for Archer to come and fight him. Shirou battles Archer without stuttering determination, making Archer irritated. On the side, Saber watches them clash, recognizing their valid reasons while reminiscing on her own past. Shirou advances with his blades at Archer, who finally grows blinded by his metal set determination and is eclipsed by the vision of Kiritsugu, the man he promised to take on his dream. His faltering is enough for Shirou to stab him and win the clash. However, he slightly poked him and Archer accepts defeat. From behind, Rin worriedly appears to see the two injured. However, before Archer can take his leave, he's impaled by a set of swords. Gilgamesh, who'd been watching the clash, appears and throws another batch of swords as Archer pushes Shirou to safety and takes the fatal shot. Turning to dust, he mouths Shirou to take care of Gilgamesh. As Saber confronts him, Gilgamesh reveals that he was the Archer-class servant in the previous war who'd managed to live with Gire's help. Claiming that the Grail's been corrupted, it's nothing but chaos, and he wishes to acquire it to wipe humanity and rule over those who dare make it out of hell. Aiming his sword, he prepares to strike, but is interrupted by the fire Lancer had started and leaves. Meeting with Shinji outside, he finds him, exaggerating his tiny wound. He informs that he can produce the Grail and in a swift, mercilessly deposits Ilya's heart in him. Shinji bulges and blisters in pain as his body becomes a mindless vessel of an incomplete Grail. Tending to the injuries back at Shirou's, the three decide to destroy the Grail itself if all it means is harm and chaos, forsaking their own wishes. Discussing how to go about it, they decide to let Saber handle Gilgamesh as Rin and Shirou dismantle the Grail before it takes its full form. However, with Gilgamesh's infinite armory at his disposal, they'd need an equal armory to destroy him, which means Saber would be at a disadvantage. Pondering over it, Rin realizes something before hurrying away to rest, blushed. At night, Shirou knocks on her door questioning if he did something wrong. Inviting him in, she explains that to fight Gilgamesh, only Archer's marble is a worthy match. However, Archer's gone, but Shirou is here. Therefore, she'd have to implant her magical crest into Shirou to provide enough mana and enable him to summon Archer's Land of Swords to combat Gilgamesh. Growing blushed, she explains that the process of transplant is rather intimate, so they end up in a steamy mess. What luck, eh? The two awkwardly take their clothes off as Rin rests his palms on Shirou's bare back, transplanting her crest into him. Once done, Rin grows embarrassed, realizing that he must have seen some embarrassing memories of hers. Exiting her room, he finds Saber, who thanks him for all the memories. At Ryudo Temple, Gilgamesh plants Shinji's bludgeoned body, the Lesser Grail, opening the hole to the Greater Grail. Opening the hole to the Greater Grail, calling out to it, he asks it to spew its horrors. Climbing from the back and entering the temple, Rin and Shirou are met with the ghastly sight of the blistering lumps as the whole of the Grail spills the destructive fire causing muck. Same as 10 years ago when Shirou was saved by Kiritsugu. Realizing that it's the Grail, the two decide to pry Shinji out when they're surprisingly interrupted by Gilgamesh himself. Seeing the turn of events, Shirou tells Rin to make way into the gruesome mountain of lumps to save Shinji while he handles Gilgamesh. As per the plan, Saber rushes up the front, hoping to face Gilgamesh, but is met with the assassin guarding the front. Confused as to how he remains when Caster is dead, Assassin reveals that he isn't a real servant, but a fictitious one, hence he has no objective. He'd been simply wishing to face the remarkability of Saber once again. Distraught, Saber gears to face him. Battling with him, she fears his hidden blows. However, this time, she manages to zap past while slashing the assassin across the chest. Accepting his defeat, he happily dusts away, granting Saber permission as she runs inside. Inside the temple, the Grail's hole gapes bigger as Shirou attempts to trace all of Gilgamesh's weapons to combat him, giving him a fitting fight. Just then, the lump agitatedly grows, creating a massive arm coming to grab Gilgamesh. It seems that Rin has successfully removed Shinji and the Grail wants him now. However, Gilgamesh brings his most formidable weapon Aya, destroying it while creating a massive blast, causing Shirou to collapse in tatters. Lying in tatters, Shirou gathers his determination and stands back up. Just as Gilgamesh shoots, Saber arrives, defending him. However, he asks Saber to go to Rin's aid. As she rushes off, Shirou chants, summoning the reality marble and bringing Gilgamesh inside with him. There, he engages in a fitting final battle with him. Saber arrives at the foot of lumps, calling out to Rin, but is unable to cross, for it's toxic to her as a servant. Rin puts a command seal banning her from coming to her as she gets engulfed by the lumps. Struggling, she accepts her fate and uses another command seal at Saber to destroy the Grail, despite sacrificing her and Shinji. As Saber tries her best to withhold the command, Archer's voice grazes Rin's ear. A platoon of swords free her from the lumps just as Saber destroys the Grail. Safe at last, Rin watches as Saber bids goodbye and vanishes. Inside the reality marble, Gilgamesh gets agitated more than ever as Shirou combats him fatally. Even his strongest arsenal puffs to dust and is forced to bring out the Aya. However, Shirou, coming down at him through the sky, slashes his arm carrying the Aya, defeating Gilgamesh. As the reality marble dissolves, the Grail's hole gapes, vacuuming Gilgamesh, who who tries to drag Shirou with him, however a sudden sword impaling right through his forehead. Archer's proved to be the fatal blow. Rin finds Archer, who is still alive. Disappearing for good, he tells Rin to take care of him as Shirou comes out behind. 2 years have passed since the Holy Grail War and the disappearance of Saber and Archer. Shirou, now better at tracing, can create several weapons, still dreaming of the day he clashed with himself, Archer. Making them breakfast, Shirou and Rin leave for their classes at the Clock Tower, England. In the hall, they meet a fellow classmate, supposedly smitten with Shirou, and a rival of Rin, who grows jealous, engaging in a scramble with her. What a lucky guy, man, to have 2 girls fight like cats over him. Getting injured in the duel, Rin complains as she asks about the letter Shirou has received to join the Mage Association. The next day, Shirou wakes up to Rin examining the archer blades he's formulated and asks him to come with her. Taking him to the ruins of Glastonbury, the resting place of Saber, she gives Shirou a proper chance to say his goodbyes. On their way back, Shirou reminisces about the month after the war ended, where Rin and him had started seeing each other. She had decided to come to Clock Tower to train as the successor of her family and offered to bring Shirou as a pupil of her, allowing him to develop into a proper mage. The next day, Shirou turns the invitation down, since being a mage of the Mages Association would restrict him, and all he wants to do is be free, to save and leave none. To be the champion of justice and become Archer himself. Hand in hand with Rin, he decides to stream into the future together.